had a brief reflection about AI and body wisdom and hidden unconscious circuits. This is to my friend and fellow journeyman and oracle explorer of the unknown, Danny. And I thought I might also make it open discussion just to share with the world these musings and meanderings. Had a really beautiful stay, traveling around. I was recently in London and hung out with Danny, who I'd met earlier in Australia, and came to a realization of the similarity in our current path, and our particular innate fascinations with flow, with ancient songlines, with inner alchemy, a bunch of things. So that's the context for this message. This message is to you, Danny. Hello, hello, Lee. So I had this idea. I was watching this video recently about this AI, so artificial intelligence bot that Elon Musk's OpenAI company has created to play a really famous strategic game, real-time game called Dota, and it's playing the world's best players. And just the way that it's learning, it has an experience. It's basically given the parameter of like getting hurt, getting injured, dying is bad, and then I guess getting points and growing your power is good. So I thought or ruminated on the idea, mused on the idea that people are saying that maybe this is a hologram, that we are in a simulation, a godlike simulation as it may be. And then I thought, well, what is the AI? I mean, I think that it would be most clever, if the designer, the architect was intelligent, it would be not to make it external, because if the AI or the algorithms are external to us, then we can get away from it. But if it's embedded within us, then we take it with us wherever we go. It's learning from our direct visceral experiences. So by us, it's like almost a parasite mind, whereby we go around in wanting to have experiences, taking things in through our senses, smelling, tasting, touching, laughing, singing, and all of this is taken in as some kind of learning from the secondary mind, or this secondary calculation that's recording and learning how to best human. The next point I thought was about this pleasure and pain sort of motivation. Often we are drawn towards pleasure and away from pain. There's obviously exceptions, but generally we're rewarded. It's like you do this thing, if you haven't eaten for a long time, then you eat. Wow, you get all this, whatever it is, release of endorphins and whatever these sort of things are. And it's like saying yes, yes. Same thing with sex. It's a simple survival thing of procreation, and then there's this idea of orgasm. So it's like a little dangling carrot of like, well done, pat on the back, keep doing that thing. And so then I got to thinking about the idea of how to hack that. And this was the idea of the sharing of this. It's like being in bed with a Siamese twin that you didn't realize was there, and then going, what has your hand been picking up? What have you been eating? What have you been feeding into my system? And really looking at how much credence we give to the pleasure reward. And I know there's ideas of ascetic lifestyle, Zen-like, monk-like, going without detachment, all that kind of stuff, which obviously gets away from that reward system where we're not going for that nice feeling, and therefore can maybe transcend the bot, transcend the programming, and get into the true allness, or the true intention of self. But what was the point here? Oh no, maybe the mind is clouding because I'm getting too close to the truth. What is it? I think it's actually related to this. I think it's related to the fact that when you start to get close to the answer, there's certain exerting of pressure to occlude it. I think that there's this insidious desire for us to remain in the trap so that we can continue playing, so that we can continue to collect data. I think there's an external display of this through the way that we're all recording our lives. Like I'm recording this video right now, we take photos of our food, we continually tweet and a status update, and all of these sort of things, they seem to be coming from a personal advantage state of like, oh cool, people know about my life and my friends get to hear and blah blah blah. But I think that the subjective stories are pretty much inconsequential on the long-term historic scale. But the long-term historic benefit of us sharing so much is that there'll be digital archaeologists in generations to come which can review all this amazing data. When we're taking the pulse of humanity constantly with all this upload of all these gigabytes of information. So if you were a divine bot, divine AI, artificial intelligence, or PHI, post-human intelligence, you'd want people to keep playing. So if people are freeing themselves, liberating themselves through meditation or spiritual practices or asceticism of not being engaged in the visceral sensory rewards of living, you're going to want to put a honey trap of some kind, spiritual, golden light, to draw them like a moth to the flame, burn their wings and put them back in. And I've heard that on a spiritual level, that is kind of the case where, when you leave the body, there is a white light and you don't go towards the white light, even though, it could seem like heaven, whatever it is, because that can be a trap. So that's more of an esoteric kind of relation, but more of a tangible day-to-day sort of thing is when we have these kind of knowings, especially conscious people talking about their feelings. If we're just going to go with our feelings, I think we really have to ascertain the distinction between like a knowing intuition, a real beautiful wild instinct beyond the simple pleasures of sensory reward, and what are we being spurred by emotions where it's like a pain pleasure response? We're like, oh no, I don't feel good about this. I'm not going to go there. I can't commit to. I was sick. I don't feel like I want to do this. I'm just gonna be kind to myself and lie here and do nothing. Or I feel so enchanted. I don't know what it is. Like this honey heroin, beautiful drifting. This is amazing. I think there are these traps, and this is what I'm interested in: is what is pleasure really indicating? What should we go towards? What signals are we taking in as our true feedback loop of existing, of sharing, a play space with existence? And what is that space? Just then I tried to go to it of thoughtlessness. Is it like being invisible? Is it a cloaking device? If we can just be and live, do we go silent in the eyes of the bot? Imagine it's like a blip, like a bleep, bleep, a signal that we need to keep tapping in, which is why the mind is so grabbing of our attention and such a constant noise. Because this is just a hypothesis, but by interacting with the mind, it's like bloop, registering ourselves on the solar radar of the bot. When we go into stillness, it's like we're cloaked. Are we there or not? Because ultimately, if a conscious point is without time and space, if you just are, you come back to 0 point. You don't exist anymore. Or you don't exist in the eyes of the people who are measuring the metric by this mental noise. And a lot of these things, the pleasure and the pain, come from the mind as well. The pain of either avoiding, oh shit, I'm scared, I'm worried, I'm going to go out there and the things are going to happen to me. All that pain is actually just mentally generated. And then even in the moment itself, sure, there's a physical collision, absolutely, and there'll be cell damage to the body. But then a lot of that afterwards can be held in the mind as trauma and enacted on the body as well. So pleasure and pain alike, to a large degree, are purely mental. So yeah, it's just amusing on, are we in a simulation? Are we running a program? Is our body our friend? Can we cloak ourselves and not exist and therefore circumnavigate the programming? What is pleasure and pain really guiding us towards and against? Just ideas.